welcome back. Right? Groovy music.
I know.
Welcome back to another episode of The Conversation Show. Okay, folks, I'm trying on a new intro today because I had a conversation earlier and there was something that really stood out. And something where I've always thought, like, what is the conversation show about? And who is it for? And who is the conversation show for? It is for the curious people. So, this is a place where the curious people come together to explore through conversation the things that are relevant, not just in our personal lives, but also in our work lives. Those human factors that don't just touch us in one place, but actually touch our lives in all different places. And if we're not talking about them in a holistic way, then we're missing really cool opportunities to build, create, be creative, a whole bunch of things. So this is what we do at the Conversation Show. And hey, Russ Hedge, good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the conversation. And today we are talking about, again, maybe something, I don't know, maybe something we keep for our personal lives that we're going to talk about in a whole bunch of different arenas today. And that two things. Okay. I read Russ's comment and he said two awesome ladies, and then it just went into my head. And thanks, Russ. Today we're talking about creating harmony. And creating harmony is, yes, something that is relevant in our personal lives, and yes, something that's relevant in our business lives and how businesses run, because businesses run on people. And if people don't have harmony, then things start to get weird. And out of quote unquote balance. So before we hop in, I saw the eye roll, Lisa. Yeah, we're going to talk about it some more, peeps. All right, so before we get into the conversation, let's learn a little bit more about my lovely guest today, the beautiful Lisa. So Lisa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why creating harmony is something you're so passionate about?
Because my life was a train wreck for about 40 years, basically. So I clearly needed a lot of harmony. Thank you so much for having me on. And that music behind in the green room was so funky. We were driving. It was very cute.
Special shout out to Andy Fellows. You can find him on LinkedIn. He custom created that music for me. And he's awesome. If anybody is looking for custom personal brand music.
Go, Andy. That was amazing. Yeah. It was very uplifting. And I'm going to talk about music as we dive into the rabbit holes of harmony. So why is harmony so important to me? Well, Life in a Snapshot was basically from an abusive childhood and to realizing that that world was not the world that my friends were seeing, because my mother had psychiatric illness, and so it was a very distorted perspective of life, and very unsafe. And as life happened, I ended up being a champion swimmer because I needed to get out of the house. So I ended up spending 5 hours a day in the pool and 6 hours a day at school. So I was very fortunate that I could see two worlds and had to find my way into the new world that I wanted to go into. I was exposed to through a martial arts club when I was 14, metaphysics, meditation, Tai Chi, and for a youngster, I mean, that's like a big woo world. But it felt really comfortable there. I was curious. I was very curious. I'm still very curious. In my 50s, I have a childlike curiosity because I am a scientist. And, funny story, afternoon school, we're going to deviate a lot, aren't we? So
yeah. This is the episode of rabbit holes. So just hold on to it. We're going to come. Yes, we're going to get to where we're going. I promise.
Yes. So afternoon school, black and white TV folks. Who in the room remembers the black and white tube TV?
Raise your commenty hand if you do remember that.
or hit the laugh emoji. So I'm so glad that they've put the laugh emoji in there. They need the wow emoji now.
Need a like angry emoji too.
No, we don't want that. We don't want that. No.
People, yeah.
So there was Professor Julius Sumner Miller. Write that name down. And he was white lab coat, wiry hair. Like, this is black and white TV. So it looked like Frankenstein's laboratory, really. So there were Bunsen burners and things. And I was so fascinated because all he used to say was, why is this so? What a great question. And I'm one of those people that love to sit on the edge of the water and look out into the horizon and think, isn't it so amazing that the water just doesn't float up into the sky? And gravity, the laws. And so last night was a full moon. Who loves stargazing? Like, I'm just so magnetized by the moon. I just look into it for ages. And so I don't know why I got onto Professor Julius. Because I became a scientist. Yeah, so it was being curious. So metaphysics, blah, blah. Anyways, so I ended up running away from home because it was safer not being there. And I joined the army, which was still safer than not being at home. And that I had quite a serious injury there. I was medically discharged, and I because I came from I was very ill as well, so I internalized all my fear, which is why having harmony in your body and mind is very important, because it creates disease if you don't have it. And so I always wanted to help people in some capacity, because I realized that there were a lot of people who had such tragedy, trauma, adversity in their life, and I was always leaning towards the medical aspect of things, because science, fascination, the universe, all those things. And so I became a medical scientist in diagnostic pathology. So I'm the white lab coat person. Isn't that so funny? Full circle. However, I didn't accumulate. I've got some silver lining going on, but not the wiry one. And so I looked down the microscope and we diagnosed disease for doctors, mainly in oncology, the cancer units and so forth, the neonatal units, premies, infection, all that kind of stuff. But I was dying of my own multiple diseases. I had a lot of autoimmune systemic disease, multiple surgeries, and that holistic component kept calling me to solve my own problems, because I knew I had to solve them, nobody else. And that led me into holistic wellness, nutrition, high-level personal development. The people who may have heard me before say that I was so blessed to be personally mentored by Mr. Jim Rohn. He's now passed, but he was Tony Robbins' teacher for those people who are in the personal development world. So I've had high-level personal development for over 20 years now. I became an entrepreneur, built a 6-figure business, and solve my own problems. So, and now I help people teach themselves how to solve their own problems. Mainly women in business, leading with confidence and clarity, and developing kick butt confidence and courage and Wonder Woman poses, So yeah, anyways.
I love that. So in your journey, Lisa, like, what role did harmony play? And you talked about both harmony in the body and harmony in the mind. What role did that play in you solving your own problems?
Understanding that, because I coming from Western medicine and also being exposed to the Eastern holistic modalities, I knew that they were both connected. We now, the people who love quantum science, it's there, but it's not. They understand that we're going to start talking about music and sound and vibration is that we're energetic beings. You know, under the microscope, I can bring this back to science. Under the millions of times magnified under electron microscope, you know, we can see, zooming down into cells, that they're just basically vibrating stuff. And so energy is just vibration in motion. So when we are feeling sad, frustrated, shame, guilt, anger, all of these negative emotions, we vibrate at a very, very low frequency. We can measure that. So it's palpable. We can, just like we can hear music. Music is literally a frequency coming into our ears. It goes into the little bits and pieces, the cogs and wheels, and all of a sudden we can hear jive and music coming onto the show, or beautiful birds whistling outside. So when you have high vibrating frequency music, it actually lifts our internal vibration as well. But what's really important is that you have to align your thought processes of, if you want to change, if you want to get better, you have to do positive things that are going to lead that. And so I knew that I had to get out of my rut. I didn't play the pity party for very long because I was very driven. I was very success driven, because that was part of my survival mechanism, to be significant, to achieve things. So people would say, hey, she's a cool dude, or good on you, because I never got nurtured as a child. And so having that knowing of, I can lead myself into a very negative state and not eat well, not exercise, not sleep, drink too much. By the way, I've had a fairly healthy, active life most of my life, but I did drink too much because I lived in a world of pain with all of my surgery and diseases and so forth. But I also, I was holding on to a lot of negative emotions because I had to learn how to deal through all the trauma that had been stacked on. And it was just undoing the onion layers. And so keeping up that healthy lifestyle, but also through all the personal development I learned, Jim Rohn always said, if you want to be happy, study people living a happy life and watch what they do. If you want to be successful, study successful people and see what they do. And so that was part of my mission, was to do everything within my power. I had no resources at one stage because my second husband, that ended with me facing bankruptcy and a $500,000 debt. So, you know, I was even homeless at one stage. So, you know, I've been through a lot. So that internal drive of finding inner peace and harmony was such a major, it was a life goal for me to find inner peace and happiness. And so what I would do was do everything that happy, successful people were doing. I would model them. I would say, what are they doing to get that? And you have to, if you, who really gets annoyed that if you're in a foul mood or angry or sad and someone says, well, just get over it. Just think happy thoughts. Just think happy thoughts. If you just don't want to snot them in the face, say, walk a day in my shoes, buddy. But if you want to change your state, look at what you can do to, first of all, raise your vibration. And you can't say positive affirmations in a negative state, because that actually reinforces that in a contracted state. So your body's feeling depressed, you're sad, you're angry, and you're saying, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. Take a walk in nature. Think of a beautiful moment that you may have had in life. There's probably one moment. Think of that moment and just say a positive affirmation in that moment. I'm grateful for that moment. Just those tiny little steps. I had to do that. I would drown myself for hours every day in personal development because there were some days when I couldn't get out of bed. And for me, learning everything I could to find that inner peace and happiness was to practice what harmony was. It was the whole wheel of life. Is there something you might want to add while I'm just talking like a fire hose here before I go into the wheel of life?
Well, one of the things, I do have a question, but I want to hear what you have to say about the wheel of life, and then we will come back to it. I've written it down,
Sure.
so I won't forget it.
Sure. I've got my little notepad here too. So once again, being a student of personal development, I was one of my mentors. His name is Mr. George Knight. He was mentored by Paul J. Meyer. Now, Paul J. Meyer was the founder of a major personal development company back in the 50s and 60s, and he created the concept of the wheel of life. So today, I mean, it's just thrashed all over the internet, but I was exposed to this 20 years ago, and I had such a light bulb moment that we talk about physical health, emotional health, family and social, your career, your time management, your spiritual health, all of those things. And if you, there we go, we're going to say it, there's no such thing as balance.
It was bound to come up at some point.
Yeah. So there is no such thing as balance, because if you tried to balance everything in that wheel, it would still be broken. It's like holes in a bucket. Because some things need more attention than the other. Your spiritual health, your physical and emotional health, and your family health, they might be more important than your career, because it's doing its job, and so you have to find harmony in that, where you are your true authentic self. You're not living on somebody else's expectations or demands, or the old beliefs of what was instilled to you as a child. Because if you still don't have your own identity, you're not internally happy or in harmony. And so the wheel of life concept for me was, I get it, I understand, how can I actually fill the holes in the pieces of this pie? And that was sort of like my life mastery journey, because I understood that. And I tell you what, as I continually worked on it day in, day out, and it's not a magic carpet ride, like if you also know me and my connection on LinkedIn, a couple of weeks ago, I was hacked on Facebook, and they went into my bank accounts, and people were running ads on my money. And it was a whole, like, my account got shut down. I got cut out of it. So like it was a red hot mess. And so was I for a little bit, because somebody was stealing my money. Not a happy place. And so, but the beautiful thing is, when you do have that inner peace, that inner harmony, you look at life as almost an observer. You're not subjective. You don't take things personally. You say, okay, well, why did that happen? That curiosity thing again, honey. Why did that happen? Was I responsible for that happening? If I wasn't, if I'm not in control of it, what can I do to manage myself and my emotions over it? And so I don't even know where this is going now, but basically it was finding that whole holistic aspect of making sure that everything, you're filling your cup up in all of the pieces of the pie, is really, really important. They can't be neglected. If one ingredient out of a cake is missing, your cake isn't that good. So it's exactly the same thing. And the problem is, this is so important. We are trying to get that satisfaction from out there for us to be healthy, happy, free, rich, all of those things. All the answers are within us. And when we realize that, when we wake up to that, we can actually start to make progress and start to undo the layers of all the crap and the damage. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. That is actually been imposed upon us, and we've allowed to happen to us over and over and over again. Okay.
Yeah.
Sermon over.
Well, I think this is really important because, so I have 3 different places I want to take this, but this is the first one. Because one of the things you mentioned is like, look at happy people and see what they do. And then one of the other things you said is that your version of harmony is filling the wheel in a way that is authentic for you. So how, in a society where we are continually encouraged to go outside and just like see what they do, and we're not actually telling people see what they do and then copy them. That's not what we're telling people, but that's what a lot of people hear, right? So
Yes.
I'm going to go out and I'm going to see what Tony Robbins does, and I'm going to exactly copy him and copy his energy and copy his style and like copy all the things, which is not authentic. So in that journey, maybe with like for your journey or for your clients, Lisa, like how do you find people finding that? I mean, I think it's an exploration of how we can like learn from other people, yet build our confidence to try things on, but then say like one of the things that doesn't work for me is journaling. Lots of people love journaling. It's like very productive for a lot of people. And for me, no, it's not my thing. And that's fine because I get my expression and everything and my thoughts flowing in different ways. And so like how do we get any tips for people on how to go along that journey from like seeing what other people do and figuring out what actually works for you?
Yes. And it's very difficult in our noisy, fast-paced world, because one of the key things is to actually become still. And when we become still, for those people who have a lot of turmoil, all they hear is their negative chatter.
Right.
And so they go for distraction and they move away from that. But sometimes we actually have to really lean in and listen to what that chatter's going on about, and saying, well, where did this happen? Where did this start? Is it me? Is it really me? Or were they the belief systems that were put in me when I was a kid, or as I was growing up, or by my ex, or and so trying to find a place of stillness, and sometimes it's because I'm going to throw that word out there that's been absolutely hacked to death, is mindfulness. The true embodiment of that is the wheel of life, of all the facets of life, of understanding what is valuable for you in your health, what's valuable for you in your family, what's valuable for you in your spiritual life. It's your values, not what you grew up in or what society's imposed upon you. It's what feels good for you. And the problem that I find in our very connected world, you wake up and the first thing there we go, the phone, left, right here.
I know.
The first thing people do is grab for their phone. And I don't touch my phone for 3 hours in the morning, because I actually fill up my cup first. And when when we are so connected, we're actually completely disconnected from ourselves.
Mm.
And we don't have time to stop and think, what do I love? When I was happy, or when I had happy moments, what was I doing? How did I feel in that moment? And most people are not living in what they feel is their life's purpose. That's getting thrown around as well as a lot. Like, when we are actually talking about the real aspect of it, not what the coaches online are saying, find your purpose, and that may have just ruffled a few feathers there, but I'm
We ruffle feathers sometimes here on the show.
I'm all about speaking my truth. And if you don't feel like you're living in your own truth of who you are, how you want to act, how you want to express yourself to the world, how you want your relationships to be with yourself and other people, you can't be in harmony, because you're actually living a lie. And so it's taking that time to be still, and there, it's to do that, there's certain steps that need to be done in a certain order. And finding a person who has walked the path, rather than teaching it from a course they learned or a textbook, is very different. And you feel that from people. You can you become magnetized to somebody that is, I feel like that's a path that I've walked on, and she's walked on, or he's walked on, and now I see where she's gone. So, I'm going to explore. There's that word. Be curious, explore that a little bit more. And if we just remain curious, this is really important, what you said right at the beginning, Tracy. I I will always have a childlike curiosity. Like, I'm 54, and I'm thinking, okay, well, the first 45 was pretty ordinary. And I got so excited when I turned 50, because I thought, yes, the rest is wisdom. Okay. So the next 50 or 70, I'll go for 120. It's going to be absolutely freaking amazing, because I am in charge. And when you're in charge, you actually don't take the burdens of society on you. You just look at it as an observer.
Mm-hmm.
And that is harmony, when you can say, that's their thing. It doesn't impact me unless I allow it to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so living a lie. I don't think any of us want to do that. I don't think we're approaching our day being like, let's go live a lie today. I think people want to be authentic, and they want to be happy, and they want to feel harmony and those types of things. But I also believe that there's a level of self-awareness that is required in order to do that.
Yes.
My personal journey is that the more and more I learn about myself, the more and more authentic I feel, because I'm reflecting more of me. And so one of the things you said earlier on in the conversation, you were talking about internal drive. And so I want to talk about this for a moment, because one of the things I see a lot, sales and marketing is kind of my jam, right? And people try and sell you this concept of harmony, right? Like, you want to feel more harmony in your life. And yeah, I think most of us are a yes to that. But at the same time, this is really about taking people on a journey who have decided for themselves that I'm done with not feeling harmony in my life. I want to have more. I don't know what that looks like. And so I'm ready to get curious. So how important is that shift, and how much of that is us versus how much of that is external factors?
Yeah. That's a really great question, because you don't know what you don't know. And generally, it's when you've had that moment of being as low as you possibly can be in that, at that place and time of I've had enough, that you open yourself up to finding an answer, whether or not you yell at prayer and saying, I've had enough, give me a sign that I can change. Or you, somebody, well, it's the same thing. It's that synchronicity of something or someone happens to pass your sliding door moment where it catches your attention, and you go on that curiosity journey of it feels good. So when it feels good, this is really important. This is the harmony button getting pushed here. When it feels good, it means that you're in alignment with it, and that you want to explore it more. You want to actually move towards that, because it's a vibrational match. When you're doing something, this is another thing that people, it's almost like the diet or the fitness plan or New Year's resolution. It's yeah, I've got to do it, but you're doing it with cement shoes on, and it's not going to work. You've already set yourself up for failure. The whole process of what you're asking is to actually surrender to being vulnerable and face the fear. Because a lot of people actually keep it blocked and tapped off and pushed down because they don't want to go through the grieving, the anger process, the whole process of letting that thing, that poison go. And you can't solve a problem by just pushing it down. You have to actually face it.
Yeah. And this is like, I tell people all the time, like, I can't make you choose something, right? Like, I can't even make my son choose to eat his peas, like, which would be great if I could do that. But we don't have control over other people that way. We only have control over ourselves that way. And it's so interesting when you're talking about the sliding door moments, right? I have this, and the listeners probably have heard me tell this story before, but I was just like dusting my shelves in my old life, like pretty normal, right? And having my own internal monologue with my conversation with myself. It's not just a monologue. I do both sides when I'm having a conversation with myself.
Me too.
And I think I'm being my authentic self like 5% of the time. And then as soon as I said, and then I was like, what is up with that? Right. And then I got really curious, and I was like, what is it making me? Because I think, like, I actually like myself. I think I'm pretty good, right? Like, I'm pretty smart and pretty fun. I'm like pretty athletic. Like, why am I doing that? And it was really interesting because there were lots of stories in my life that had built up to that. Yeah. But I, for whatever reason, dusting my shelves, my experience was that, like, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with 5% authenticity. So now I don't believe in 100% either, because we don't know what we don't know. But I drive for as much authenticity in a day as I can have. And part of that is learning, right? Learning that I was wrong, or learning that I held this belief that wasn't actually my belief, and I didn't think it was true. And the more, I'm really loving this theme of curiosity, because I didn't know this is where we're going to go today, but this is where it's going. How it, like, that curiosity is really what gives you access to the knowledge you need to create your own version of harmony. And if we don't bring that childlike sense of wonder to our own experience and ask ourselves, I think of this every single time I see anybody sitting in traffic, right? Like, there's literally thousands of people here just not thinking there's anything different that could happen, right?
Brain dead.
And I've been that person. So I know, like, I'm not thinking about it. I'm usually thinking about, like, how stressed I am, or how am I going to get this project done, or like crying on the phone talking to my dad about how bad my day was. Like, these were the things I was doing, but I wasn't curious about, like, how could this not be my reality? How could I get more connected to the things that are meaningful for me, that create
Yeah.
passion for me, that create joy, that create peace and calm, instead of this, like, my experience is always just that it's the color gray, right? Like this color gray. That's just, and then sometimes gray gets a bad rap because it is a color. And with all the other colors, it works. But by itself, it's just like very meh. And I'm just not about having a meh life. I only have one, right? Like, well, maybe you might believe other things, but other people, but like, all my consciousness knows is this current life that I'm in right now. And so, how can I make the most of it based on what feels good for
Yes.
me? And let's talk about this for a second, Lisa, because I feel like what feels good for you also evolves over
Yes.
time. So, like, how does that play into the maintaining harmony piece of the
Maintaining
puzzle?
harmony.
Mhm.
Uh, Well, for starters, I actually wear Minnie Mouse slippers. I've got Mickey Mouse up there. No joke.
I have Mickey Mouse right here.
Well, I
Social
got,
apprentice.
it's beautiful. I've got happy feet all day long. And so it is an evolution, because when let's talk about dusting the shelf for a moment. That was really important, because not dusting.
It was important because the shelf was really dusty.
One of those, that's like, whenever you think of something that you can't get pen and paper, you're in the shower and you have a download. It's just like, oh, I need to write that down. And like 30 seconds later, it's, oh, what was that?
And you try to remember it by saying it over and over and over, but it like slowly
Yeah.
fades.
I've done that too. It doesn't work either.
No.
Because as soon as you stop saying it, it's
Gone. And then you're like, oh no, I dropped the soap. And then by the time you pick up the soap, it's gone.
yes. And so that's part of the whole stillness thing, is that in that mundane movement of not thinking is where we need to be to actually start listening to ourselves, our true self. I believe that we have a higher representation of ourself beyond this physical body. And it's just like, hello, quieten it in there so I can actually talk to you, give you some sense, tell you you're on the wrong path, baby. So that, and once there's a frequency emotional scale called the Hawkins scale. It's one of those quantum science things. And because we can measure the frequency of the body and measure where the state people are in, we can align it. And through the research of the Hawkins funnel, approximately 70% of that case study group were vibrating at the frequency which is equivalent to fear. And that brings me to another very interesting statistic. We've just gone down a tangent here. Is that there was a whole lot of brainiacs and psychologists, and there was a global study done on asking adults who had a traumatic life event, and did it impact them in a major way. And this was pre-COVID. It was about 2017, I think. And 70% of the adult case study group reported that they had suffered a significant trauma in their life. And so we're all 70%. There might be the 30% who didn't say yes, but they really did.
Or they deemed their trauma not significant. So
that's right.
yeah.
But they're impacted, and their life has unfolded that it hasn't impacted them anyway. But there are some people who literally go on a magic carpet ride the whole life, and bless their cotton socks, they're very fortunate. But with that in mind, knowing that many people are sort of stuck in this low frequency state and not doing because of their lack of awareness, they're not doing what they need to move out of it. But once the door's been pried open and you have that curiosity, it feels good, you're drawn towards it, you start learning more, you start expanding. What happens is you go out of your contracted state into expansion. You take all the focus off woe is me self and have more, how can I help other people, how can I serve other people? I'm starting to find my purpose. Starting to do the things that I enjoy doing, starting to do things that fill me up. That once you expand, you actually can't contract back
Right.
to. Who's ever gotten something out of a box and then tried to put it all back in, but you can't quite shut the box how it was. Just
I
like,
have a board game that's like this, and I'm like, how did this even fit in here?
exactly. Well, that's exactly the same as our expansion, our personal growth, our self-development, our spiritual growth. Once we start, and that gains momentum. I'm starting to get excited here. I actually felt a rise in energy as soon as I said that, because that's what happens. Is we raise. Oh, now I've got goose pimples all over me. Yeah, so you can fire yourself up.
But I think this is so important too, because I participate in a lot of different conversations. I think there's lots of different areas where there's like new and interesting ideas. And this is like, I love this. So this is what I wrote down is, once you've expanded, you can't go back in the box. And this is like, there's so it's kind of, it always makes me think of like, once you learn how to ride a bike, you don't forget how to ride a bike, right? Like you might be kind of wobbly. Like I remember the first time I rode my bike with my son on the back, and it was like the balance was different because he's back there, and it took a minute to like readjust, but I didn't forget how to ride a bike.
Yes.
And it's like when people say, I can't unsee that, right? You can't unsee it. There's too many things to be seen. So I just love that so much, just from the perspective. I've never actually thought about it from like a personal expansion perspective and thinking about it from a box. And so many people will say like, I just don't fit in a box, right? That's probably because you're on the expansion
Yes.
wave, and the box is not. So the box isn't going to follow you into your expansion. And there's also groups of people who may follow you into your expansion, and people who may not follow you into your expansion. So I did want to talk about this, because another thing where I think a lot of people talk about harmony is this like interpersonal harmony, right? So creating harmony between two people or groups of people or a team, or two people in a spousal relationship, or a mom and a kid, or like there's lots of interpersonal creating harmony too. And so if harmony is so personal, and it's really like an inside job, and we have our own harmony formula based on our wheel, how do we play nicely in like creating this interpersonal harmony?
That is such an important question. And my perspective, because just remember, everything that I've said here today is just my belief system, and people can take it or leave it. When we allow others to be as they are, and not even psychologically impose our belief system on how they act, what they say, it's when we start that judgy thing and we do it unconsciously that there's a mismatch. And so if you I feel love for everyone, everything, no matter what color, race, gender, whatever, because they all bleed red, they all suck oxygen. We are all spiritual human beings. And how somebody lives their life is none of my business. So why should I judge that? It's very important to, if you want to have harmonious relationships, is to allow other people to be who they are in that moment, and us not try to impose our values and our belief system on how they should act, how they should interact, whatever. Because most people, what I find, aware or not, are doing the best that they can in this moment. You know, there's most people are good people. There's only a few bad people, as Jim Rohn said. You know, they move around a lot. It can make you feel like you've bumped into them a couple of times. But other than that, that's when, especially if someone's an angry person, and you know they just feel bad, like you can feel the vibration. And a great example of how we bringing that human frequency vibration back into play is that you walk into a room where there's a couple, husband wife partnership, whatever, have had an argument, and you go, "Ooh, it's pretty chilly in here," and you know you could cut it with a knife. So you can feel how people are. And the way because I just live with so much compassion and kindness with every being, because even though my mother was extremely abusive, every single day of her life is suffering. Every single day was suffering. And so to have compassion for somebody living in that such deep, deep suffering, and knowing that that's who they are, I can't change her. But what I can do is feel love and compassion for her. Don't have to accept the behavior, but just understand that, and that allows me to stay safe in my feelings and emotions as well. Because as soon as we try to wish somebody was acting a different way, it messes us up.
And it messes us up, not them.
Yeah, it messes us up. We're using all this energy on wanting to change somebody who is probably quite happy the way they are.
Or they could be quite miserable the way they are. Either way, we can't change who they are.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I hear it in that too, like there is still this commitment to like this stillness and the space, right? Like this space for people to be who they are. One of the narratives that I've been practicing with my son is that's one way to do it, right? Or saying like that's different instead of that's weird, or like that's different. And different isn't bad, but it is different, right? And that's okay for it to be different. It's like he started celebrating people doing things in kind of wonky ways, and I'm like getting pretty excited about it. It's like that he'll be like, that's what he'll do, something in like a completely ridiculous way and be like, that's one way to do it, right? And I'm like, you're right. It is one way to do it. And I think these are skills too, right? That need to be practiced, and we need to create our space to practice them. So the last thing I want to talk about, Lisa, is from like a business perspective, because I feel like the gap in this process, if we wanted to create harmony from a business perspective, what we don't create is space for that. Like people go to work, and this happens to entrepreneurs too, right? You hit your work day and you just go and you do things, and you don't actually create space to create harmony. So if I feel like the only answer really is to slow down and stop and create that space. But are there any tips that you have on like taking a first step in that direction? Besides just like, one of the things I love to do is put reminders in my phone. So I do like, I'm working on embodiment. So I have an alarm that goes off at 12 o'clock every day. That is embodiment time. And I take 3 deep breaths and I feel what is going on in my body. And it takes a minute, right? Like it's not a lot of time, but you start to build that muscle by creating the intentionality. So I'm a big fan of just like, pick a time. I like to try. I promote doing things daily, right? If we do things
Yeah.
daily, then we get more practice instead of weekly. But if you give yourself 10 minutes
Yeah.
on a daily basis, and I feel like this is an amount of time that everyone could make for themselves if they
Yes.
choose, like just take 10 minutes. Just, I don't know, get yourself a hot cup of tea or something that like makes you feel warm and safe and cozy, or go into a space where you feel that and just be for 10
Yes.
minutes. Um, Maybe it's your bathroom locked away from your kids. It's possible. But taking that intentionally for yourself,
Yes.
just to be curious, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, what percentage of my day do I feel like I spent in harmony? Okay, no, 5. Okay, well, maybe I go for tomorrow, or maybe I go for 6 tomorrow, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a shift from spending no time in a day to spending 3 hours in a day, which is what Lisa does in her morning routine, which isn't all specifically related to creating harmony, but they're the activities that contribute to Lisa's harmony. And these are things, because I think when people are like, I don't have 3 hours, like there's no way I could take 3 hours in my day to do that, until you work up to this point where you start to let go of the things that don't create
Yeah.
harmony
That
for
don't
you.
serve you. Yeah.
And then you realize that there's a lot of them that take up a lot of time.
Yes.
And if I start to let those things go, not that we can let all of our responsibilities go, right? Like, I have a son, I have to make sure he eats. And sometimes that takes way longer than 10 minutes, I will tell you that. But like, there's also things that we can do, right? We used to have this rule about eating dinner together at the table, and it mostly just stressed everybody out. So I was like, what if we don't? Right? Like, what if that's not the time for our like family bonding time? Everybody's like, the way everyone in my family eats is just like way different, right? So why don't we just like create space for everybody to eat in the way that's comfortable for them, and then we can do family game night or something.
Yeah.
And we've started playing Old Maid, right? And, we passed the Old Maid around, and everybody's laughing about it. It's fun. That's the meaningful bit of the family connection. It doesn't have to be over dinner. So when we create that time, it gives us the opportunity to be curious. And then once you turn, I feel like the curiosity muscle turns into like a fire hose really fast.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
once you practice being curious, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, is that really something I believe? Okay, no, great, I'll let it go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you get to create harmony faster.
Yeah, well, if people understand Tony Robbins' teaching on the 6 human needs, there's certainty, uncertainty, significance, connection, giving back, all these things, and that uncertainty, that's the curiosity, is like the fun uncertainty is that, oh, I want to know more about that. But I do set alarms. My morning routine, this is one of the things that, because I had a vision for my life, and I choose to spend the first 3 hours of my day doing my thing. That serves me, and so when I teach other people to do their morning routine, it might literally be 15 or 20 minutes,
Right.
because it's all the time that they have. But where can we do it into pockets of the day? I do have alarms go off through my day with little mantras going on there, because it's pattern interrupt, and it brings me back into, I take a couple of big deep breaths. Breath is one of the first things that actually calms our nervous system, and so it's very, very powerful to ensure, even if you're sitting there right now slumped over your computer, straighten up, my friends, put those shoulders back, take a nice big deep breath, fill those lungs up, and so and so we'll all do a priming action. So yes, I've got alarms. Even people sitting in traffic, if they're just got this 45-minute commute or 2-hour commute or whatever it is, they could shift their way of thinking and listen to podcasts instead of listen to the news and the music. While you're doing your grocery shopping, I have podcasts going on in my ear, or my audio book, because I love to learn, and so that's time that I can learn when I'm doing those mundane tasks. And so it's all these little things that we can have tiny little micro shifts in our day to have self time. And before you know it, you've probably got 2 hours going on in your day that, hey, now it's all about me and I'm feeling good with that. And when you're feeling good, you want more of that. And so that's the expansion process, which keeps you curious.
Yeah. But I also think that there's a lot of narrative about productivity, right? But I also think that these things drive productivity, because if I know it's important for me to have these 2 hours to do these things, then I can explore, get curious about ways to be more productive in my day. What are the things that I'm doing that aren't generating anything? Great, let them go. What are the things that I actively look for that take my energy away? Right? Do I
Yes.
have to, like, I may have to deal with them at some point, but like, do I have to actively go search for them?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I always tell people that, like, there's a way for everything to be more fun. Whether it's the most fun thing you do is a different thing. Like, accounting will never be the most fun thing for me, but I have found ways to, like, I really enjoy talking to new people. So when I know I have to do my accounting, I put coffee chats on either side of my accounting time so that I like bring my joy level back up. And
Yes.
these are things that, like, even in that, right? One coffee chat is 30 minutes. Um, I can take a I started painting again, which is something that's like so soothing for me. And I can paint a picture in, like, with all set up and everything, probably 15 to 20 minutes. But this is not like, it doesn't have to be a lot of time. And is it something that is like Picasso style quality? No, but that's not what I'm trying to do. Right? I'm trying to express my thoughts in color. That's a different thing, and it's very personal for me. But these are the things too, and we get to like explore and kind of play with what works for me and what doesn't work for me, and let go of any pressure in getting it right, and just have fun in the exploration. I feel like that's where harmony lives. And if we
Yeah.
could, if you're watching this and you run a business, and or you are part of a business and a manager, like, how could we, one, learn that for ourselves so we can lead by example, but two, how can we create that in the workplace, and like, what could that do to your team from a productivity
Yes.
level, and a
Yes.
connection level? So this has been so great, Lisa, and I don't think we went down nearly as many rabbit holes as we thought we were going to.
I
So
know.
good job, us. There's a couple of comments in here that I just want to share, because Ashif has many great comments in here. So people go back and read through all of his great comments. But in silence, you can see a lot. This
Yeah.
is something that we talked about a lot. And I really love this from Amber. We are the architects of our own illumination, the bearers of light that shine through the darkness.
Beautiful.
And if we are hoping to live in a world that has more harmony, then we got to start with ourselves,
Yes.
um, and get curious about what we can do to start inside out, bringing
Yes.
harmony to the world.
Yes. Absolutely.
Ugh,
Absolutely.
love it. Lisa, where should our peeps go if they would like to learn more about you? And I think you have something that is related to confidence coming up
Yes.
pretty soon, which is related to harmony.
Yes.
If you wanted to share with the crowd as well.
Thank you. I have just a website, lisamarree.com. So it's MARREE. It's a bit weird. Um, so, but I've just got some general information on there, some free resources. But I am running a free masterclass in a couple of weeks' time. That is my main target audience that I'm working with are women in business, or those women who are aspiring to transition into. And it's about, the clarity of your message, and to basically be able to stand out online with your authenticity. So building that courage and confidence muscle, along with your curiosity muscle as well, to be able to just show up and be that illumination online of and that magnetism for the people who need you, your message. It doesn't matter if people have the same business as 500 other people online, there's only one you, only one unique you with your message, and the people that gravitate towards you want your message. And so how can you express that online through all the minutiae and all the noise? So yeah,
And this, if you're
I think
wondering,
that
like,
link's going to be in here, isn't it?
yes, it is. It's
Yeah.
going to be in the chat, so you guys can find it there if you are looking to register for that. There's, if you're wondering in that, what does that have to do with creating harmony? Well, folks, remember that thing we said about going inside out?
Yeah.
This is about your inner illumination. So it starts with creating harmony on the inside. It is not about showing some shiny version of fakeness to the world, which is what I think a lot of people think about, like that. There's a version the world wants to see that isn't really me, and this is not about that. It's about the inside out transition, so people get to see the real you.
When you're in alignment with your message, then that's the beautiful harmony, and that you make that that collaborative energy as well, so it spreads out, and so it starts within and it spreads out, and it's so beautiful. And what's the saying is that all boats rise on a high tide together. On a high tide, all the boats
rise. High tide raises all boats, I think is what
that's the one.
We all get what you mean. Okay, Lisa, if you have a couple more minutes, there is a question that snuck in right at the end here. Do you believe great leaders move in silence?
My perspective on that question, because it could mean a couple of things, is that there are leaders who demonstrate and give orders, but there are leaders who they lead by example, so they walk their talk, but they also allow other people space to talk, which means that Jim Rohn always said we got two of these and one of these for a reason. And so when you are silent, you can learn so much about people and the environment, and be in tune with what gaps need to be filled, or what is working that you can build momentum on. So I do believe that a great leader is somewhat silent, because they're listeners, they're learners, they're doers. So I think that's my best answer for that at this moment.
Yeah. Well, and I think these are the types of things that there's lots of ways to explore, right? But I really love what you said there, Lisa, about the listening and what you can learn when you're listening, because this is another thing about curiosity, right? We ask a question so we can hear the answer. We don't just ask a question into the ether to check a box to say, like, I'm being curious today. When you pose those types of questions and you get to explore, well, like, what does move mean? Does that mean forward, backwards? Does that mean that, like, I am being silent? I believe a lot of things happen in conversation, so that is listening and sharing perspectives. It's very much answered the LinkedIn users question, so I think you're good there. But these are the things, right? This is the fun. And so, like I say in every show, if creating harmony is something that is top of mind for you, that you feel very passionate about, don't let this be the last time you're in a conversation about creating harmony. Connect with Lisa, connect with me, connect with each other in the chat, right? These are people who are at least curious about creating harmony. And who else do you want to explore creating harmony with but the curious? Because they will have more questions for you that will allow you to go deeper than you can go by yourself.
And I'm just about to release a little mini course on mindfulness that encompasses that harmony of the wheel of life, so people can actually move through stages and learn how to connect with themselves in that aspect of life. So that'll be on my website in the next few days, hopefully.
So connect with Lisa because she has all the resources and you definitely want to have them as well. Thank you all for being in the chat. Wonderful group we had today. Thank you for all of your lovely insights. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your journey and all of your wonderful perspectives on what we can do to create a little more harmony in our own lives. And until next time, everybody, permission to do you.
Thank you so much, Tracy.